Shall we have a conversation about how to generate revenue on Airbnb and Vrbo with no property and no money? I think we should. So stick around and I'll be right back. Welcome, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee, or tea, or vodka, and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about how to actually make money on Airbnb and Vrbo without any property, without any money. And there is a method to it, and I want you to really pay attention and even take notes, if you will. When most people think of real estate investing, they usually assume a few things. One, they think they need a lot of capital to get started, okay? And two, they think they need to own a lot of property to make money. Actually, that's not true. And there is something called rental arbitrage. I want you to remember this word, rental arbitrage. And this is a kind of a quintessential when it comes to making money on Airbnb, Vrbo, and other websites. Owning property is not a bad thing though, but it's not necessary under the arbitrage model. Through this method, you can work with a landlord to rent out their property on Airbnb and make a lot of money doing so. Now, you might be thinking, why is the landlord going through you and not doing it himself or herself? Well, I'll explain why later on, because you'll bring into the table some some expertise and competitive advantage that he or she, the landlord that is, doesn't have. Okay, first let's understand the concept of rental arbitrage and how you can apply it to Airbnb, Vrbo, and other platforms so you can generate money with no property and no money. Okay, the word arbitrage is a financial term that basically means taking commodities from one marketplace and selling them for profit in another. So in reference to Airbnb, that means what? It means that as an investor, you rent a property from a landlord, then list this property on Airbnb or Vrbo, and you collect the difference. For example, let's say you rent out a condo for $1,000 per month and you list it on Airbnb for $3,000 per month. So before expenses, you collect $2,000 per month in profit, right? Now, keep in mind though, that expenses can range from $250 to $1,000 plus per month, depending on your strategy. And most rental arbitrage investors aim to make around $1,000 net profit per property, although you can make much more. It really depends on your strategy. And rental arbitrage is legal. Just in case you're asking, it is completely legal and there's no problem with it. In fact, the rental arbitrage strategy has been used for a long time. It's just not called, it wasn't talked about often. Like many creative investment strategies, it actually comes from the realm of commercial real estate. First, you got to tell your landlord about your intentions for the property. Please be open. You want to be truthful here. Be forthcoming. And because some will be open to it, some landlords will accept the idea, others won't. And if you encounter one who isn't, you move on. Because at the end of the day, honesty is key. So first thing is you want to understand the rental arbitrage. Number two, you want to partner with what I call niche property owners. You want to find specific landlords who fit your retail arbitrage strategy. Those are your niche property owners. Because as I said earlier, not all property owners will be open to the idea of giving you the property and you can list it on a Vrbo or Airbnb, right? So learning how to work with landlords is quintessential to successfully implementing your rental arbitrage. After all, we're not trying to be sneaky here, right? We're trying to be, we're just business people, businessmen and businesswomen. We're trying to make some cash here. So how do you actually convince landlords to work with you? Very simple. Actually, there are two things you can do, 2 or 3 things. Number one, you want to remind them of the benefits for them, not you, them. So when a landlord rents their property to someone doing rental arbitrage, he or she can rest assured knowing that he or she is getting a long-term business-to-business tenant with a financial incentive to keep their property in tip-top shape year-round. Think about it. That's a great benefits for the for the property owner, right? Because if they're dealing B2B, they know there is a quality of service here which might not be available in a B2C transaction. So during arbitrage, you rent the property at full market rate, or maybe even a little higher to sweeten the deal, as long as it works with your business plan. And the landlord's equity is increasing, and they're getting a little bit of cash flow every single month. So that's the second part of it. That's the second argument you can actually pull, the second negotiation point you can actually raise during the conversation with the landlord. The property is increasing, the property is appreciating, and they basically are getting cash flows every month. And some investors worry that Airbnb guests will destroy the house. Every now and then, someone may do something destructive. That's just part of the rental business, if you really think about it. It's usually a very small percentage of the guests. All right? And it's a risk with traditional renters too. In addition, with Airbnb, there are courses of action you can take to get reimbursed, not to mention a free $1 million liability policy for listed properties. So when someone using the arbitrage model rents a property from a landlord, it is in his or her best interest to keep the property pristine, really. So for the landlord, this means the property will be in top selling condition all year. You really want to, if you want to generate money on Airbnb and Vrbo with no property and no money, you got to offer rental owners a deal they cannot refuse. It's not really enough to just say, listen, I want to rent your property. I'm going to put it on the market on Vrbo and Airbnb, and everything will be fine. No, it's not. If that's not enough to convince the landlord, you want to try other tactics to make the deal more desirable. Number one, you want to offer an additional layer of third-party insurance. This works all the time. Let me just explain why. For security conscious property owners who are just thinking about their property and the risk around it, this appeals to their need for more certainty. So you can shop various companies for a third-party insurance policy that you can layer on top of the $1 million policy that you already have. And this offers plenty of protection against just about any possible scenario. And remember, as long as the numbers make sense financially for you, this is a great strategy if it helps to get the deal done. Option number two, you can also offer profit sharing. This is actually where you offer a percentage of the net profit of each deal that you are doing with the landlord. This could be 50-50, it could be 40-60, it could be 80-20, it really depends. And this comes from a concept in private equity known as economic alignment. This is economics 101 here. So the basic premise is that when a party has a financial incentive in a business's success, they are more willing to help that business succeed. So you may give away a large portion of the profit of your first few deals in order to build up your portfolio and develop a track record. And you might think this is not really fair, but guess what? This may be exactly what you need to do in order to convince the landlord. So once you have several deals under your belt, you may have more bargaining leverage and you can take a larger share of the profits. The third thing you can do is to offer to rent multiple properties from the landlord at once. Think about it. This is great. This is a great offer here. You can expand with the landlord as he or she builds out his or her portfolio. So a lot of single family home investors are looking for equity buildup in each of their properties over long periods of time. So if you can prove to them that your model works, then you can offer to expand alongside them to accomplish their goals. And the cool thing here is that with this strategy, you and the landlord become joint venture partners, each helping the other accomplish their investment goals. Isn't that wonderful? I think it is. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another session of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. I'm still having a conversation with you about how to generate revenue on Airbnb and Vrbo with no property and no money. Number 4, you want to craft a proper Airbnb rental arbitrage. Now, first of all, when I'm talking about for any of the steps that I'm going to give you today, you literally don't need to spend any amount of dollar any dollar, except maybe the 25 to 50 business registration fees at the state level. Of course, you got to register your business if you want to do things the legit way, right? There's no need to hire any professional on a full-time basis. You can pay them by project. Okay, here I'm talking about attorneys, accountants, co-hosts, that kind of professional category. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is in crafting a proper Airbnb rental arbitrage strategy, you first need to set up your business. Whether it is a LLC, whether it is a C corporation or S corporation, I would advise you to choose an LLC. It works best. It's very easy to set up and simple to manage, and it even offers favorable tax options. Okay, so you also want to take inventory of your assets, resources, and network. So what can you leverage for immediate success? As I said, you don't need tens of thousands of dollars. You don't need thousands of dollars. But if you do have investment capital, I would still encourage you to start small, because it could be tempting to start to thinking about jumping into the business head first. But you must learn the systems first before you scale. Capital wise, you only need $100 to $1,000. You need to build your team. Building your team should have an attorney. You want someone who specializes in corporate law and or real estate, an accountant, a co-host, right? This person is a member of the Airbnb or Vrbo community who doesn't control any property themselves, but helps full-time host manage existing properties, right? So you want to think of him like you're a personal property manager who oversees day-to-day operations. And Airbnb or Vrbo allows you to give the co-host a percentage of the profit of each deal that they help you with. Think about the cleaning crew, very important. You also want to do some market research. So you want to think about things like the properties that you're looking for, the minimum nightly rates, the number of bedrooms in the property, the amenities like a washer, dryer, or air conditioning, the proximity to downtown or other very touristic spots, the decorating style, very important also. You want to find properties that fit in your rental arbitrage strategy. This is very important, because once you narrow your search down to the exact submarket or zip code you're considering, it's just a matter of analysis. You may have to sort through 50 to 100 rental properties before you find your needle in the haystack. But this effort, guess what, will be rewarded in the end. It will be worth it. You also want to list your property. So I'm still having a conversation with you about your Airbnb rental arbitrage strategy. Okay, so you need to list your property. So listing your property is straightforward. Just follow the instructions on the Airbnb or Vrbo page by selecting become a host. So you can create a dummy profile to get started and then create your real listing later on. Okay, so after you are set up, you can create your schedule, set requirements for guests, and establish your daily rates. So from there, everything is taken care of on the Airbnb or Vrbo website and app, which is what makes this model so easy to get into. You want to optimize your listing, very important, right? So every profile has a rank on those platforms, and that rank is determined by an internal algorithms only known to the platform owners. And this is kind of similar to Google search results, all right? So you want to actually, there are a lot of criteria that go into making the algorithm work for you. So you can glean more tips from Airbnb or Vrbo in the FAQ section, and you have to think about the keywords here. You have to think about the quality and appeal of the photos. You have to think about the pricing. You have to think about the lighting and the photo editing. You have to think about the neighborhood. All right, and you also want to think about automating your business. It's very important to understand that if you want to successfully build an Airbnb or Vrbo portfolio that generates, say, thousands of dollars per month, you really don't want to be stuck working 100 hours per week to maintain it. Not at all. Okay, so you want to actually establish appropriate systems to run your Vrbo or Airbnb business with minimal efforts and maximum income. In other words, you're going to have to think about outsourcing stuff. You're going to have to automate stuff. For example, you need to think about automating the check-in process. In terms of the property management, you want to have a co-host. You want to have a co-host, right? Because a co-host is one of your most powerful automation techniques. You want to find someone you can trust with experience in the hospitality and real estate industries, right? The person will be the face of your business on the properties that they represent and manage. They'll be responsible for handling things like guest questions and providing additional services. So this is kind of important and you want to have the right person. Either way, you know your operations better than I do. And once you have your operation, you set it up, think about anything you can do to automate things. And the last thing you need to do is to promote your Airbnb listing strategically. And there are a couple of things you can do here. Now, first you have to focus on, there are three things. In terms of promoting your Airbnb listing strategically, there are three things. You, the host, your profile, and your listing. And you as the host, you have to make sure that you have as few cancellations as possible. Even better, try to have no cancellations, because Airbnb or Vrbo has a seriously stemmed down on cancellations in a bid to improve the guest experience. So you need to avoid canceling reservations. The assortment of penalties handled to you will affect your position in the search results. And social media is kind of important too. I mean, social media is huge nowadays, right? So you want to have the right strategy in terms of integration, integrating your Airbnb or Vrbo listing to your social media page or social media group. It doesn't have to be yours. It can be one that really caters to the target audience you're looking to target. Really, you're looking to attract. And social media is huge nowadays. So why not utilize that audience and promote your listing? If you link your Airbnb profile, you'll be able to spread the word and boost your reputation on the platform. Besides, talking about Airbnb or Vrbo outside of Airbnb or Vrbo will be rewarded, really. So when it comes to going social, there are actually 2 or 3 platforms that are really great. Facebook, of course, really, and Instagram. Right? You also have word of mouth. You can think about if there are some local directories in the area where you are located. It's important to be innovative here, to be creative in finding the right sort of stratagem for your Airbnb or Vrbo retail arbitrage strategy. One thing for sure, Facebook and Instagram are the heroes in the lifestyle space when it comes to promoting your Airbnb or Vrbo listing quickly and effectively. Why? Likes and comments can put your property in the spotlight, and fast. Just how do you benefit from having your listing represented on social media? It really depends on how you do it. But you are going to see a lot of traffic. You can use hashtags. You can actually engage more with your potential customers, with the potential tenants. And all of this translates into higher revenue down the road. Besides you, the host, I was just telling you earlier, you have to think about your profile on the Vrbo, on Airbnb, right? You want to have 5-star reviews. You want to actually go for those reviews, because the review system on Airbnb or Vrbo is very effective for increasing SEO. So if you earn 5-star evaluations, you'll prove to Airbnb and the millions of guests on the platform that you can be trusted. And with trust comes a greater number of bookings, which then snowballs into more exposure on the site. Trying to have a complete profile, so make sure that you fill out each section of your profile with great details, because that showcases your commitment and dedication to your Airbnb or Vrbo business. That's exactly what Airbnb or Vrbo wants to see, right? And that's why you will be rewarded with higher rankings in the search results. And that's what you want. You want to have that high positioning in the search results. And also you want to think about having, for instance, on Airbnb, you want to have the superhost status, because being a superhost status, having a superhost status is the ultimate recognition for being a top quality host, and the badge will do wonders for your business. Trust me, we've done research about this, and this is really, really day in and day out. It's just fantastic. Not only would the superhost badge help with SEO, it will enable you to price your listings on the higher end. And you also have to think about your listing. So when it comes to your listings, you have to think about the pricing strategy. Pricing, of course, is key to attracting guests, and it's important that you get your strategy spot on. So you want to take into account the season, the time, and the special occasions, because those are indications that an adjustment is really necessary. And if you don't want the hassle, just set up smart pricing and have Airbnb do it for you. You also have to update availability. This is very important because constantly updating your calendar to display when you are home is available when your home is available for rent will prove to Airbnb that you are active on the platform. And as you know by now, being active is appreciated by Airbnb, so you will show higher up in search results. You also want to tweak duration to one night because Airbnb or Vrbo loves hosts that can offer some flexibility, and which is why setting up your minimum stay duration to one night will yield tremendous results. This is very important. Okay. And one thing I also want to say here is that you have to also think about instant booking. This could be great for your SEO and help you on Vrbo or Airbnb. All right, folks, this is it for today's conversation. I was just talking to you earlier about how to generate revenue on Airbnb and Vrbo with no property and no money. First, you need to understand rental arbitrage. Number 2, you want to partner with niche property owners. Number 3, you want to offer rental owners a deal they cannot refuse. Number 4, you want to craft a proper Airbnb rental arbitrage strategy. And number 5, you want to promote your Airbnb listing strategically. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.